What is happening, my good people? And welcome back to
Man like Moses one.
Yeah. We back with yet another reaction. How y'all doing? Y'all good? It's gorgeous, lovely stuff. You know, I love doing this. I love coming to react to good content, entertaining y'all. You know, y'all do me a favor. Y'all like, subscribe, and share, and hit that notification bell. Right. Today we're going to be reacting to 13 things from the 1980s kids today would never understand.
The 1980s was an amazing time to grow up. The
I
changes
love the
taking
80s,
place
man. Honestly, my favorite decade, like definitely the 1960s, 80s, and 90s. You know, 80s is beautiful.
just about every aspect of life could be felt by everyone. Technology was the biggest driver of this, and life seemed like it couldn't get any better.
Oh,
The
word?
1980s were a good mix of a latchkey past and the digital future that was to come. But things
Interesting.
today are far different from what we ever imagined.
Yes, they
So
are.
let's take a look at 13 things from the 1980s that kids
Okay,
today would
let's
never
get
fully
it.
understand.
Am I amongst those kids? I think I'm amongst those kids.
The use of technology in schools varies greatly when we think back to the 1980s. They of course had overhead projectors, which allowed the teacher to project transparent sheets onto a screen, which allowed them to work through problems or
Overhead
worksheets as a whole
projectors.
class, essentially replacing
Interesting.
the need for a blackboard. But when we think of classroom technology today, kids have iPads and laptops that they
Yeah.
carry around with them all the time. Back
Yeah.
in the 1980s, you were lucky if there was one giant computer somewhere in the classroom, or a special computer room you would go to that was used by the whole school. The days you could play on the computer was always a treat because it meant you could play the Oregon Trail. For some, this was the first memory of using a computer, and it
Interesting.
certainly was memorable, especially since you were usually killed off.
How old would you be if you're born? So obviously to have, existed in the 80s or existed as a high school student in the 80s, say you were in like, say, 8th grade, because I think we're 1 year ahead in years in the UK. So 8th grade, I think it's like year 9. We call it year 9 over here. So you're around about like, how old was I in year 9? 2012, 14. So like 13, 14. So late 60s, say you were probably born. So, interesting. So those born in the late 60s.
Before you made it to Oregon.
How old are they now?
Kids today
Probably
have
like
access to
in
more
their early
entertainment than
50s.
they could ever dream of consuming. When new movies come out, you can stream them instantly, and you
Yes,
don't
you
even
can.
have to beg
Shout
your
out to
parents.
Netflix,
In the 1980s,
Apple TV.
the closest thing to on-demand was waiting all week to head to the video store. This
Really?
was after you waited months for the movie to be released on VHS. Then
Oh,
when you would head over to the new release,
VHS. Do you know my mom? Bless her. My mom had a lot of, still has. I recently went to my mom's country, or my country, Nigeria, and I saw the old. My mom has a sort of office, 2 offices, there's like old DVDs and stuff. It's incredible, like VHS. Of old school classics, like A Few Good Men. Mom had Taxi Driver. Mom had The Commando. A lot of films like from the 80s and 70s and stuff. The classics, The Fugitive, Harrison Ford, and so yeah, Mom had a lot of VHS. And there was this, is it Robert Powell's Jesus of Nazareth? Mom had it on like this. She used to watch it every Easter Sunday and stuff like, yeah, so VHS, it's very, I saw them around when I went, but
section at your local video store, there's a good chance all the copies were already rented, and you had to wait even longer. There was still nothing better than making that weekly trip to rent movies.
the 80s sounds so technical. You had to find a way around you had to find a way around things, as opposed to, the modern day, you could literally just bring out your phone and it's just like there, or your laptop.
Movies and leaving with a stack of VHS tapes that would fill
Word.
your weekend. Oh yeah, and you also
Wow.
had to remember to rewind the movies before you returned
Oh
them to the
yes,
store.
the rewinding.
Rediscover your past by
Ah.
digitizing your family's
Mom
memories
used to
with
rewind
Legacy
it?
Box. Watch until the end of this video to find out
Interesting.
more about preserving your legacy, and then visit legacybox.com/recollection.
Within the last few years, the need for fidget toys has become almost
What are
a
these, like,
necessity for kids,
I've seen them.
as if sitting
I've
still
seen
for a
them
bit
around.
is torture. Kids today have to constantly be fiddling, spinning, or clicking buttons in order to survive the day.
Nah, you're a bit wrong on that one, mate. Kids, they got like iPads, iPad minis, and they just look at it and watch those educational videos on YouTube, either like cosplayers, Spider-Man or Superman or stuff like that. Most kids got that.
The closest thing we had to a fidget spinner was the Rubik's Cube. This
Rubik's
puzzle game
Cube.
had you
It's still
twisting
around
blocks
today.
in order to complete each
Well, it's not
side's
that popular.
color. It required thought and strategy to even
Yeah,
come close.
do I legit have not been able to like sort out completely, how would I put it? Get to the end of a Rubik's Cube. Literally, solve the equation or whatever. I've not been able to do it. I just I've never had time. It's like, well, I'll just watch a film. Why am I doing that? It's like, what the I know y'all early 50-year-olds are probably mad at me as for like,
How dare you?
you're looking to me as like unappreciative for like, y'all fun back then.
There was also a book you could buy which helped you learn how to solve the puzzle. Aside
I'm a
from the
Gen Z.
Rubik's Cube, there were also these helicopter seeds that would fall from the trees. I guess picking them up, tossing them in the air, and watching
Oh,
them
word?
twirl back down to earth over and over again could be considered fidgeting back in the day.
Interesting.
Whenever a disaster strikes today, you seem to always see a GoFundMe page or some other crowdfunding app that is meant to ease the financial burden. But in the 1980s, music was how we raised money for the needy. Songs like Do They Know It's Christmas and We Are the World gathered the decade's biggest stars to perform a charity single that raised money to combat the famine happening in Ethiopia. On top of that, there were also opportunities through television commercials to sponsor children in impoverished countries. For just
Sally
$11
says thanks
a
for your
month,
giving.
you believed you were making a difference in the world.
Interesting.
The fantasy genre
Avatar.
in the 1980s was drastically different than what we see today.
Yes, it
With
was.
CGI.
Yeah, CG was, although I appreciate, some of it, but yeah, CG wasn't as good as it is in the modern day. I had a friend, we were watching a film together. We were watching a film together, and she was telling me, the visuals nowadays, they look so realistic. Like back in her day, in the 80s, 90s, they didn't have visuals like that. It was, it was there, but it wasn't as refined as it is in modern day. And she's like, it looks so good.
And advances in special effects. Franchises like Harry Potter, Avatar, and
Harry
Game
Potter.
of Thrones look unbelievably real. Maybe that's
Yes,
why
they do.
cosplay
Exactly.
is so popular, even for adults. But in the 1980s, you never saw anyone walking around as their favorite character from The Dark Crystal or The Never-Ending Story. These
Interesting.
movies used puppets and animatronics that were pretty crude, so you never truly felt immersed in that world.
Interesting.
There was Star Wars, which was the most convincing. But it's really nothing like the
it still
newer
is
Star Wars
convincing in the modern day.
films developed today. Instead,
Is that-
we had David Bowie,
David Bowie, I was about to say.
basically dressed as a 1970s version of himself in the 1986 movie Labyrinth.
Labyrinth. Is it Pan's Labyrinth?
The 1980s was a revolution in video
That
games
Guillermo
being
del
brought to
Toro.
the masses.
Oh, I remember
This is the
Pac-Man.
decade when kids moved away from heading to the arcade and chose to stay home.
Arcades, I still love arcades. So that's one thing I'm with y'all on. Arcades are incredible, man. Like when I'm with my mate and we head down to London, it's like, we go to the arcade in central London, Oxford Street. We love that. There's one arcade on, it's on, where's it on? Like Tottenham Court Road, somewhere near Oxford Street, Tottenham Court Road type. But yeah, we go there. It's fun. It's fun. We see car games. We play air hockey, and you know, it's just fun. We the dancing game where you have to sort of put your foot on the thingy. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. In fact, a place in which it would be a first date sort of venue type that I'll, you know, either arcade or cinema. If I was to take a girl out, you know, I'm old fashioned like that, man. You know,
play their very own Atari, Commodore 64, or Nintendo Entertainment System. It was
Nintendo.
exhilarating when you opened up that birthday
remember
or
Pac-Man.
Christmas present and saw
Pac-Man.
a
Was it
Nintendo
Pac-Man?
logo.
Pac-Man?
And kids
Pac-Man?
today may never know that feeling.
Yes, I
However,
do.
video games were large cartridges, and they occasionally needed special treatment before they could be played. Nintendo games like Duck Hunt and The Legend of Zelda may have needed the
remember
dust blown
Zelda.
out before you could get it to load. If that didn't work, you might also have to try inserting the cartridge in different ways to get it to start. Today,
Interesting.
games live online, and video
Yes,
game
it
consoles
is.
are just computers that connect to the internet, and they give
Basically.
you instant access to any game you want to play. Oh
Basically.
yeah, and the controllers are wireless now, so you don't
Yes,
have to
they
sit
are.
within 6 feet of the television to play
Basically.
a game.
Everything is just so much more convenient
During the
and easier in the modern
1980s,
day.
rainbows were not a statement about your sexuality. It was just a colorful way to accessorize an
Okay.
outfit. Who didn't wear the
Yeah.
standard 1980s flip-flops with rainbow straps? There were also the occasional set of suspenders or a belt that added a pop of color.
They look like dungarees. They took that into the 90s for sure.
To any toddler outfit. We also had Punky Brewster, Rainbow Bright, and even Reading Rainbow, which pretty much every kid in the 1980s grew up watching. Today,
Interesting.
the world of music is large, and
Spotify.
kids have endless
Apple
options
Music, man.
when it comes to finding their favorite musician, from rap to country, Disney Channel pop stars to YouTubers.
Yep.
But in the 1980s, there were really just two megastars in the
Was
world
that
of music,
Madonna?
Michael Jackson and Madonna. For Michael Jackson, it was his Thriller album from 1982, which became the
Got the Thriller. Is it that one? Thriller. No. Ding, 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 ding.
best-selling album of all time. For Madonna, it was her Like a Virgin album in 1984, which had
Is Thriller the number one most sold album of all time?
just enough
Interesting.
bad girl edge to it that teenagers went crazy for it. Both artists built
I-
careers off the success
No,
they had in the 1980s, and they remain
bet.
icons to this day.
Mr. Jackson.
The fast food experience in the 1980s was all about the promotions. I mean, who didn't have a set of Smurf glasses in their kitchen cupboard? Not only was the food affordable back then, but you got a ton of free stuff too. From
Yes, you
3D
did.
glasses and toys to
Nah, you still get a ton of free stuff. Oh, wait. Only in the Happy Meal. Only in the McDonald's Happy Meal. Yeah.
California Raisins and Muppet Babies.
California
McDonald's,
Raisins.
Burger King, and Hardee's were always offering up the coolest promo to get you in the door. Even Pizza Hut had promotional drinkware with the release of E.T. in 1982. And who could forget the Noid figures you could pick up at Domino's in the 1980s? Today, the influence that movies and pop culture have on fast food choices is pretty non-existent. And on top of that, inflation is about the only thing on the menu
Yeah.
these days.
Mm-hmm.
Just like
Y'all
with
made it
movies and
that way.
video games, streaming services give viewers control when it comes to watching their favorite show. But during
TV
the
Guide.
80s, TV shows were a weekly event that aired on a specific channel at a specific
Yeah.
time.
We have TV guides. We are talking about, man. There's this newspaper called the Daily Mail. My mum used to buy every time. My mom's more old school, so in case you haven't figured it out. But like, there was the weekend on literally the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The weekend in which you bought either, I think Saturday. You bought the weekend on Saturday. Maybe like 90 pence. So mum used to give me to buy the Daily Mail, which had a TV listing on the inside called The Weekend, like a, like a magazine, but TV listing in one as well. So like, she used to have that. And by that, mum would know what was on TV at what time. Mum always loved like Strictly Come Dancing, or like it's Dancing with the Stars equivalent, or like Agatha Christie's Poirot's or Midsummer Murders, or like, just the old school type. I used to watch it with her. So I definitely know about, TV listing,
time. So if you missed it, you were out of luck.
Basically.
That's why it was so important to consult the TV Guide or the
TV Guide.
listings
It's called
available
TV
in the
Guide or TV
newspaper
listing.
if you wanted to watch something. Most people had a favorite night for watching TV, and that led to networks blocking their most popular shows into one night.
That's
ABC
crazy.
Must-see TV, although it wouldn't be.
That's Bill Cosby, isn't it? What show was he? It's not the Jeffersons, is it? But that's Bill Cosby for sure.
Called that until the 1990s was Thursday nights, anchored by The Cosby Show.
The Cosby.
TGIF became
I've heard of
ABC's
it.
Big
God
Friday
damn it, why can't I
night
remember?
with shows like Full House.
Is that
and
Dawson's
Perfect
Creek?
Strangers.
Oh, no, it's
If you
not.
didn't have
Sorry.
a VCR set to record your favorite shows, then you were at
You
the
had to
mercy of
record.
catching reruns, which might mean
Now we have on-demand catch-up
months
TV.
of waiting. Making phone calls, just like writing letters, was how we communicated with people during the 1980s. This was before texting, FaceTime, and smartphones. There were three types of calls you could make. A local call, which you would make to friends. A long-distance expensive call, which you waited until after 7 p.m. to make because it was cheaper. And then the
Interesting.
collect call, when you wanted the other party to pay for it. The collect call meant dialing the operator first to provide the phone number.
All of this sounds so complicated, man. Why y'all complicate it?
And your name. They would then call the other person
What?
and see if they would accept the charges before they would connect the call.
Oh, wow.
Phone bills were a
Wow,
big part of the 1980s.
sounds so long.
And it was easy to rack up a huge bill
It
if
doesn't
you weren't
sound
careful.
easy.
Today, we don't even think about phone charges, except when we are adding new lines to our family plan.
Well, you
One of
still
the
do.
overarching themes of the 1980s was saying no to drugs. The Just Say No campaign was spearheaded by First Lady Nancy Reagan and was promoted through public
Ronald
events,
Reagan's
public service announcements, and
wife.
even incorporated into TV programming like Different Strokes and Punky Brewster. There was also the DARE
Interesting.
program, which had popular shirts that read DARE to keep kids off drugs. These programs targeted street drugs in the 1980s, but if they were
Interesting.
relaunched today, they would most certainly be aimed at prescription drugs and the pharmaceutical companies that run
Big
nonstop
Pharma.
ads on just about every platform. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything, and make sure to sign up
Interesting.
for the Recollection Row newsletter using the link in the description.
Very interesting. I learned a bit about how stuff used to happen in the 1980s, It sounds, some of them I sort of, know because of my mum, and some of them I didn't. But in total, it sounded so complicated. Like, why is it so complicated? Why was it so complicated, rather? Complicated, but, at least times were simpler. So that's what that's what I'll say. Yeah, no, we still have TV listings. We still have, some of the stuff that they mentioned. But yeah, all very informative. What do you lots think? Were you born around that decade or era? Should I know some more stuff? Put it on in the comments. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And I will see you next time.